couple of questions, and then our editor-in-chief and chairman, Dr. Annurag Batra, will continue the conversation. How did you get into filmmaking? And how did you get into filmmaking?
So for me, I sort of really drifted into it. The entry point was actually joining film school. Post-graduation, I was contemplating many things, continuing studying economics, in which I did economic honors from Delhi University, and then I thought maybe I want to be a lawyer.
Oh, wow.
And then my elder sister was very clear that she wanted to be a filmmaker, and she was applying for film school, Jamia, in Delhi. And I said, why don't you pick up a form for me? And she got that. Fortunately, both of us got into film school, and that's, in a certain sense, how the journey started for me. But initially, being in Delhi, I was doing a lot of documentary work. I was really lucky and privileged to associate myself with a very senior journalist at that point in time, Saeed Naqvi, who used to report from, he was obsessed with reporting and telling stories of international affairs from an Indian perspective, from a sort of South Asian context, because he felt that we are consuming international news only through the prism of BBC and CNN. And I sort of latched on to him at that moment in time. And for the next 5 years, I think I traveled to more than 70 countries with him. Wow. And it was all about, reporting on international affairs through the Indian perspective, through what it means for India. And from there, I went into documentaries. And at some point, I got a little frustrated as a documentary filmmaker, because at that point in time, there were not too many platforms where we could, showcase our documentaries. And that is the time when I was doing a lot of work in Afghanistan. So there are very interesting sort of things that happened with me there.
But work with him, that means informed, some of your work much later that you were doing with films,
Saeed, I call him Saeed Bhai. So my initial years with Saeed Bhai completely shaped me as an individual, because just traveling to so many countries around the world, meeting people, and most importantly, being able to see stories that we consume on as I said, on BBC, CNN, being able to see them and realize that there's always a perspective, and there's always a gap between a story that was told to us and a story that should have been told to us. And that, if you see some of my early work, whether it's Kabul Express or whether it's New York, or even if it's elements of Ekta Tiger, all those stories lie in that gap. Kabul Express really deals with the part of what was happening which was not really being told to us. And of course, Kabul Express was a first-hand experience, because I had spent many months as a documentary filmmaker in Afghanistan. So Kabul Express is, in a certain sense, autobiographical of what happened with me and my friend Rajan Kapoor. But yeah, that ability to see that what's behind the headlines literally came from Saeed Bhai.
So it carried on. So, well, I wanted to literally ask you this, that how and why of filmmaking. I am going to invite Dr. Annurag Batra, our editor-in-chief and chairman.
I have many of my business world colleagues here. Noor, who's worked 20 years with me, she has white hair to show for that. Tripti, who's worked 15 years with me, she has a lot of hair still to show for that. Noor is our group editorial director, but all of them have contributed to what we do. But today's conference is put together by Jyotsna. Give her a big round of applause. It's her passion. Yesterday we had a well-being summit. Devika put that together. Mr. Khan, let me start by asking you, you're a filmmaker. This is a design forum. And I asked this to a film person earlier, that a common thing is empathy. So you have to have empathy for the characters, for the plots of the story. Then only you can create the movie. Or in design, if you're doing design, you need to have empathy for whatever you're designing for. Can empathy be cultivated for people who don't have empathy?
It's an interesting question. I'm not sure whether it can be cultivated or sort of in a certain way be imparted as a training, but I'm sure it can be cultivated by having them experience, having them go through certain life experiences, being able to, empathy is what? Being able to see, again, as I was talking, it's about being able to see another perspective, being able to see something which is just beyond your understanding. And I'm sure, the world will be a better place if all of us were able to see each other's differing perspectives and also respect them. I think that's what essentially empathy is all about. I mean, as a filmmaker, for me, it all started by just this extensive travel where I was able to meet so many different people, get their views on, different subjects, and realize that it's not about right or wrong. There's always a perspective that makes you sometimes believe that you are right and the other person is wrong, but you've really spent time with them and tried to sort of understand them and speak to them, you realize that there is no right or wrong. It's only...
Absolutely, it's a perspective.
It's absolutely perspective.
It's experiences. Somebody's had them, somebody's not had them. It's where you are. And I was talking to Ms. Nandita Das in the morning. I recommended a movie which is about two people having different perspectives, how they come. It's the best movie I've seen in 3 years. It's called The Two Popes.
Oh, yes. That's been on my list, apparently.
Yes, you must watch it. I promise you, my reputation is at stake. You must watch it. It's a lovely movie. I know a bit about movies as a viewer. Now, you travel is a large part of your life. I was looking at where all you've gone, what you've done, and I was researching for this interaction. I realized when you were younger, you're very smart and handsome and young now, as I told you outside also. But you would write postcards to Minnie, to your wife, right? You would send it to her father, right? World has changed a lot since then, the days of postcards. Communication has changed. How does one deal with the barrage of information? How do you, as somebody who does so many things, again, you did a TV show called Encounter, you're making movies, you're a director, you have a public persona. How do you deal with so much communication?
You have to completely declutter. If
you're not carrying your phone right
now. No,
now.
I'm not. I'm terrible with my phone. The biggest problem that my friends have with me is that I never reply to their messages. I never sort of take calls because I just keep that damn thing off. I think it's the biggest distraction in life, and I feel in time, of course, there are lots of benefits of social media. I don't want to trash it, but I feel the negatives is going to pretty much outweigh the positives, because I feel it's just a source of negativity, a source of distraction, and completely clutters your brain before you know it.
They will never appoint you as a brand ambassador for a phone brand. That's for sure now.
So I try and basically declutter myself. It's just an exercise I do, that if I'm working on a project, sometimes I just put on blinds and I just try and read whatever I can about that subject, about as much as I can learn about the people, the characters, the subjects, and not get distracted. Of course, there is a basic minimum that you have to be aware of what's happening in the world. But if you get drawn into that, it's a cesspool.
And you still write postcards? Or letters?
No, unfortunately, I don't know. I don't even know whether there are post boxes around where I'll be able to.
Because there are post boxes.
Yeah, no, but that was. I'm glad there were simpler times, because those postcards were actually not meant for Minnie. They were more for her father. I was trying to impress her father, so I used to, I was traveling so much, so I used to send down these postcards from Tel Aviv and Cape Town and Singapore and all these countries that I was going, and Minnie knew they were not for me. Not for her, so she would just keep them lying around for her father to pick up, and slowly I think I managed to get a rapport and get an entry into that family.
Yeah. Now, by the way, I've been to Tel Aviv, I've been to Singapore, I haven't been to Cape Town, but maybe soon. You traveled so much. Which is your favorite city and why? Especially from a design standpoint. We're at a design forum. Like, I went to Istanbul 9 years back for the first time. And I fell in love with that city. I had the good pleasure of going to Islamabad, to Karachi, to Lahore. Of course, we love those cities, for my parents come from there. But which is your favorite city, especially from a design standpoint?
That's a tough one, because it's,
Okay, 2-3 cities.
But I mean, since you've sort of brought it down from a design point of view, then maybe I would be able to come up. Istanbul definitely is one of them. I think it's one of the most stunning cities that you can see. It's not just the design; it's just the layers of history in that city. It's just you.
And the contrast, like India.
It's mind-boggling that city, of course, has to be on top of the list. In terms of design, the other city that really hit me was Marrakesh in Morocco.
Been there, but
Beautiful, stunning. Again the design and the way the sort of history and contemporary sort of flows into each other is amazing.
Europe?
Europe, of course, but Europe I feel is just, I think one sort of knows so much about Europe that when we land there, it's almost like, हाँ ये देखा हुआ है. So it doesn't
Everything is
hit
very
you.
pretty similar.
I think what hits me more is when you don't know too much and you land up in a place and then you're just stunned by. I mean, for me, I'll tell you one of the moments in time when I was absolutely stunned by a structure that I saw was actually in Lhasa in Tibet. Tibet, because I used to trek a lot, I used to do a lot of mountaineering, especially in Ladakh. I was obsessed with going to Tibet. And fortunately for me, just 2 years after I ended film school, I got an opportunity to shoot a documentary called Beyond the Himalayas, where we drove for some 4 months, and we we started driving from Bukhara and Samarkand in Uzbekistan and reached Lhasa. And as we were driving into Lhasa, the sun was already setting, and by the time I parked the car and literally ran to where Potala Palace was, it was, the sun was setting, it was dusk, and just seeing that white giant palace reflecting the sort of lights of the city, and just, it was stunning. So I think it's also, that moment in time when you are somewhere. It's not always about which is the prettiest city or which is the best city or it's very difficult to say which is the best city. I think you can only say which was your best experience. And that city or that place might not necessarily be conventionally the most pretty or the place where people would have fun. But it's like that film, The Beach, right? There is no perfect beach. It's about what you are feeling at that moment in time on that beach that makes that beach the best.
Absolutely. It's what's in your mind. It's not the beach. But let me say my favorite city to you. It's a city called Göteborg, the second most popular city of Sweden. It's called Göteborg. They call it it's Gothenburg, Göteborg, different pronunciation. And it's almost picture perfect. It's got the gondola rides. It's perfect. I was lucky enough to be part of a board of the World Association of Newspapers when I was very young. And I traveled with every Indian media owner. In the opening of the Opera House, King Gustav came. And it's on the, waterfront. What a city. I mean, I loved that. But now let me ask you, Mr. Khan, if you were not a director, movie maker, what would you be? What profession would you have chosen if you hadn't come into this?
As I said, I was a drifter. So I was just drifting. Maybe I would, if my sister had not got that form for me, if we had a fight like we used to fight every single day, if you didn't bring that form for me, I don't know, maybe I would have been a lawyer. Maybe I would have continued my studies in economics. I remember as a child, I used to be one of my...
You studied Kirodimal?
Yes, I did economics there. And I remember as a child, I used to be obsessed. I wanted to join the UN. One of my uncles was in the UN. And I remember that oval light blue tag on the car used to fascinate me, and then I realized that okay, you can join UN if economics would be a good base. So at that time I was very seriously considering economics. It's just that the Delhi University Economic Honours is so bloody tough that I think I lost the courage to sort of pursue that. But I'm glad I drifted into films because the moment I went into film school, I got the camera in my hand, I realized this is exactly so that therefore I feel I've never worked in my life. I think that is for me, I think the most fortunate thing in my life, that I feel I've never worked a day in my life.
Exactly, same like me.
You're doing what you love and you're being paid for it. What else can you ask for?
I swear, in other people's eyes, I work super hard, 16-8, but I'm not working, I'm having fun. I'm getting paid. So
that's important.
As Ms. Nandita Das said in the morning, do what you love what you do. So if you make hobby or profession, you don't have to work. Confucius said that, not me. But you were born in Hyderabad, right? You studied in Delhi. Mumbai is, so to say, your karm bhumi. Which Indian city from design? Hyderabad, again, has so much culture, so much heritage. which Indian city from design fascinates you?
I would approach these cities. See, for me, my first love was actually still photography. So whenever I approach these cities, when I look at the design
I thought
aspect,
that was Mini.
no, for me it's still photography. Absolutely, it's like
Photograph is the name of a girl or
Oh,
not?
you mean Mini came? I think about 5 years after my love for still photography. So she became
I got worried.
she
I said-
became the subject of my lenses, but
Yes.
yeah, I think the still photography
Go on.
still holds that place. So for me, just a design is a dead element unless there's a human element attached to it. I don't like when I go out on streets with my cameras, wherever I'm traveling, I cannot take a photograph of a beautiful building unless there's a human element involved. So therefore, for me, one of the most fascinating cities is actually Banaras.
Oh, beautiful.
It's just there's so much of intermingling of human form, human elements with design. That's what makes it a dynamic place for me.
Beautiful. I had the good pleasure till 2013. I used to go a lot to Pakistan. I have lots of friends. So I went to Karachi. I've been to Karachi more than once. And
I've been there once.
Yeah, Karachi, as you know, if you take away their dress and the long beards, it's like Moti Nagar in Delhi. Parts of it, and parts of it are like Chandigarh, and parts of it are like civilized, you know.
And Lahore is like Delhi. I grew up in Delhi, so for
Totally.
me Lahore was
But
like
the
Delhi,
the
cleaner
city-
Delhi.
The city that impressed me most was Islamabad. When I first went to Islam, I've only been to Islamabad once. I did a huge South Asia Media Summit there, huge. I took the top 50 guys of India there, 70 of my friends, 120 people I took. And I said, how can you bomb this city? It's so beautiful. I've never been to Switzerland, but it was so pristine. I have no other word to use. But now let me shift gears. Again, when you research for a movie, when you have a topic in mind, you have a subject in mind, what is the creative process like? What is your typical playbook to approaching a subject and then converting into a project and then a movie? Is there a typical process that you follow, or every movie you've evolved and it's been different?
I would say the latter. It's that there is no typical approach to a film. It all begins with that initial sort of gut instinct of hearing something and saying, this sounds really exciting, I want to follow this. It could be your own personal experiences, as in, say, a Kabul Express. It could be newspaper headlines, like in the case of New York, which started off the process. It could be just material that was shared with me, and then sort of after I read it, got obsessed and started digging and spent 2 years researching it, as in the case of 83. So it's really that, you know, or in the case of Bajrangi Bhaijan, it actually started with the newspaper story about how, you know, a girl from Pakistan had come and the Indian doctors refused to take, you know, money from that family, and then that Vijendra Prasad, he started developing that story and then shared it with me. So it could be anything, but yes, one thing that is common is I tend to do, I guess that's also because of my documentary background, and I guess also because of, you know, my father was an academic. So this whole culture of research was very ingrained with me. So I always try and do as much research as I can about the subject, about whatever character. And then, of course, we take our creative liberties. But it comes from a position of knowing where you're departing from fact. So that has always helped me. In the case of 83, I couldn't have made that film without the 2 years of research, because, you know, as you know, in our country, unfortunately, we don't really have a culture of archiving very well. So there was nothing here. I would meet journalists, the 5 or 6 journalists who had actually gone to cover the 1983 World Cup. They themselves didn't have copies of their articles. I finally found everything at the Lord's archives, you know, because they really archive everything, down to the ticket stubs, to the articles. So that was, for me, a gold mine. And I just spent 2 years bringing that out. And then a lot of primary research, right? You go out to people and you uncover stories which otherwise nobody knew. Like, for example, with the context of 83, in the famous Tunbridge Wells, when Kapil Dev broke the world record, that's the match that there's no footage available of, and yet it's that iconic innings that everybody talks about. And now suddenly it's my responsibility to recreate that innings, and everybody will, for the first time ever, watch that innings on screen in my film. So I had to go out there, and what I did was that I invited some members of the Kent County where Tunbridge Wells is, and I said, can you just please invite members who were present that day in 1983? And these, gentlemen came, and the kind of stories they gave, that's what made the match. Like, I met the person, I met the man who said, Kapil smashed the windshield of my car. And now this is something that even Kapil Dev didn't know. None of the players knew that.
Did he charge him with interest or not?
No, I think that everybody was so euphoric on seeing that innings that, they were. But, so then I got the story that Kapil smashed that windshield, and then there was a stampede in the car park to get their cars out because, Kapil Dev was on a rampage. So these are things that you can only get through primary research, right? Which really ultimately makes the story.
You seem like a perfectionist.
And
You are, right? First you're a Virgo, so half job is done there.
I like to sort of take things to, as much attention detail as I can. I do like to sort of get all the information I can and then start writing. So
that's again common with design. My last question. Some movies do commercially very well. Some movies don't do as well. They still do well. What goes through your mind when you put in so much passion, research, effort? Movie does well, but not as well as you. And sometimes your expectations from a movie are lesser, and it does well. Give us a sense of what is it to be in that position?
So, for me, firstly, the fact that we are in this industry and it's always going to have its ups and downs, and this is an industry where the highs are really high and the lows can be really low. But I think my initial years in Yashraj Studios has really helped me, because that's one very good quality of Yashraj is it's a bit of a cocoon within the industry. And you're not treated differently whether your film is the biggest blockbuster of the year or whether your film didn't, happen to hit the mark at the box office. So I think fortunately for me, all my 3 films with Yashraj did very well. But having said that, I think what's most important in this industry is if you don't take your success too seriously, you won't be affected too badly by your failures. And I think in this industry, it's very important because, now I've been for close to 20 years in this industry, and I can safely say I've seen more people lose their mind with success than with failure.
Beautiful. I think this is true for every industry. We all could learn from it. By the way, they say failure is a great teacher. Success is a lousy teacher. So clearly. Failure teaches you much more than success does. And people who handle their success well also handle. There's nothing called failure. Randy Pausch, my favorite author who wrote the book Last Lecture, says experience is what you get when you don't get what you want. So everything is an experience. Nothing is a failure. People like you learn from it and create masterpieces. And I have to tell you on stage that you gave a break to a very close friend of mine who died last year, Ravi Khanna. He would talk to me about you. He was my neighbor in Delhi, DEFCON. And then he one day shifted to Bombay because he wanted to star in movies, and he came to give you, he did an audition with you.
He was in Bajrangi.
You gave him that role so, and it gave him a new lease of life. Unfortunately, he passed away last year. And, 6th June or 5th June, he passed away last year. So so thank you for doing that. It meant a lot to him and his family. You know what he used to do earlier? He was the head of Voice of America in India.
Yes,
when Voice of America used to be big. And there's a story how I met him, and he became a very close friend of mine, which I'll tell you off stage. But we have the present fortune of having Mr. Khan here. We can take 1 or 2 questions for him. So if you tell us your name, give us $1 million, we'll allow you to ask. Or a Lamborghini, it's the same. Any questions for Mr. Khan? Roel, you told me you worked as an entertainment reporter at Times Now? Yeah. Do you remember him?
He's actually my junior from film school.
Oh, my condolences to you.
Kabir, the kind of films you made,
Roel, it's a joke. Your face is going serious. I know you well. I worked 12 years with you. It's a joke, okay?
would you attempt similar subjects, now? Do you think Bollywood has changed in any way? If you see the Bollywood now
so
and the Bollywood you made.
Bollywood takes...
No, the kind of subject you have made earlier, the kind of, would you attempt them again?
But his spectrum is very wide, Ruben,
yes, no,
as a movie watcher.
Yeah.
But I know what you're talking about. For me, politics is very important in my films, and politics is always there in the layers beneath whether it's Bajrangi, which is a very political film, to even 83, which has its own politics. I would definitely do the similar stories. Yes, I know what you're talking about. Today it's more difficult to do it. Today I don't know whether I'll be able to mount a Bajrangi Bhaijaan, how difficult that journey would be. It was difficult enough even then. There were PILs against me at the Allahabad High Court just for the title, because apparently it was considered blasphemous to have Bhaijan with Bajrangi.
By the way, today is Hanuman Jayanti, yes. So very happy Hanuman Jayanti to you.
But yeah, I would, you see, it's ultimately because of the platform I have, which is mainstream cinema. You have to be able to tell your politics, but then you have to maneuver, and how you tell it is the most important thing. One of the greatest industries, film industries in this world, the Iranian film industry has arisen from being able to say what they wanted to say, despite all the restrictions that were put on them. So as artists, I think we have to be able to learn how to say it, because it has to be engaging and entertaining also. It's not about, we cannot give a speech out there. So whatever the circumstances might be, we have to find ways of saying
social messaging, especially in today's time where there's so much intolerance, there is so much division, yes. And there is certain leaders who will fan that. I think it's important to get message out. Any other question? Harbinder, Devika, if you can keep question ready. Anybody else? Shobha, Harbinder is the CEO of our healthcare.
It was very interesting to understand your journey, and there was a question which was about, your well-being. You just said that while making the movie, there were PILs filed against you. How did you manage that stress of trying to create a movie?
He's married for many years. See, I have been married once.
So how did you manage that stress while making a movie, but handling all these issues on the side, and still come up with something that you really are now today proud of?
It's difficult to answer a question like that. I can tell you, I just somehow believe in that line that this too shall pass. I never get overburdened by stress, and I don't take it too seriously. I know that whenever I'm setting out on a journey, whenever I'm setting out to make a film, there'll always be hurdles. It's only be a dream scenario that you embark on a journey and there'll be no hurdles in your path. So in some way you prepared for it. Sometimes they're much bigger than, the biggest hurdle I've faced was actually my first film. Within 10 days of landing in Afghanistan, I got death threat from the Taliban with our sort of names up there, and they said we'll make an example of what we do to people who are going to make films in Kabul. So I think that was baptism by fire. After that, everything looks like a teddy bear picnic. So I think, that's the way I approach all my projects and go ahead. Because for me, also it's very important that it's very important to also enjoy the process. And so therefore then you won't take that stress, because at the end of the day, you're doing something that you really love. And as a filmmaker, my ambition was, when I came to Bombay, that I want to make that one film, that everybody wants that one film. Ek bari apna naam uppar parde pe dekhna hai. So I got that. And so for me, every project after that is a bonus. And I just enjoy that, and I love that.
Beautiful. By the way, Kabir Khan, the screenwriter, the Kabir Khan, the filmmaker, the Kabir Khan, the director. But I see a philosopher in you, I swear.
I wish.
You are. You are. You may not realize it.
Maybe, yeah, a homegrown one.
Profoundness in what you say. I know it because I've been married for 22 years. You become a philosopher. So when I see one, by the way, I learned a new word, all of us, in the morning. Our opening keynote was Parniya Qureshi. Parniya Pop.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. And she gave us a new term called second love.
Pre-loved.
Pre-love. It's on my mind since the morning. So.
Ruhail is on your mind since
Ruhail
morning because pre-loved.
Ruhail is always.
He has earned the title today.
The song is there. I can sing that song also by Aha called Always on My Mind. But another day.
I don't think in a relationship you can say I've been
I would just ask.
Mr.
Yes.
Khan, I wanted to ask you your favorite childhood memory.
Has he grown up? Have you, sir?
A memory that you cherish.
I had a beautiful childhood, so I have great memories from it. But I'm a product of a mixed marriage. I had the best of both the worlds.
Yeah.
So my childhood memories are full of sort of, my mom's side, my father's side coming and us being able to, access everything and all, we used to celebrate Diwali. When my father's side used to come, we used to go to the masjid. I didn't know how to offer the namaz, but I used to mimic and copy. And so it was just such a lovely way of growing up for me and my sister. But if I was, there's one very special moment in my childhood. It's also linked to film, so I like narrating that story.
Yeah.
Is I was, I think, about 10 to 12 years old. We used to live in Delhi, in central Delhi, Pandara Park. My father was nominated to the parliament, so we were right very close to the India Gate. And I was cycling around, and I remember seeing these thousands and thousands of people coming off buses, trucks, and marching towards India Gate. And I was really intrigued. And I started cycling towards India Gate, and at one point I was stopped, and I said, "Why are you stopping me?" And he said, "No, your clothes are not right." So I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "No, there's a film being made over here." And that was the first time I realized, how big a film is.
Which movie was this?
I'll just tell you. And so I said, "What clothes should I wear?" He said, "Wear anything white and come, and we'll allow you in." I went cycling back. Whoa, white pajama kurta came
Gandhi.
running back. Yeah. And finally I was let in,
Because
and I walked in. So in the opening scene of Gandhi, which is taken from the top of the India Gate, amongst those 250,000 people is me.
Oh, wow.
See, I'm a quizzer.
That's
See, I
great.
watch a lot of movies and I'm a quizzer, so I get that. Beautiful. It's a beautiful movie.
It's one of my all-time
But can I tell
favorites.
you another favorite movie of mine? Not many people know. I have not seen a movie in 7 months, so I'm very choosy about the movies I watch. But I watched this movie called Roberto Benigni movie called Life is Beautiful.
Oh, one of my
It's
favorites,
about,
yeah.
because you said happy memories as a
Yeah,
child.
it's beautiful.
It is happy memories in a very tough space, It's one of my favorite movies.
So I must, since you mentioned it's your favorite movie, I must mention the emotion that film generated was the motivation for me when I was writing Bajrangi Bhaijaan. Because it's a film where if you can make people laugh through the film, but make them get up with tears in your eyes, it's the most
movie.
incredible emotion a filmmaker
I
can
know a
get.
bit about movies.
That's a brilliant film.
Yes. So by the way, one day I was on a flight, Jet Airways to fly, I was in the business class, met an Italian next to me, and I'm a talkative person. I have the same sun sign as you. You may be a little more reticent than me. I was talking to him, and then, so he used to be CEO of Ducati. And I was talking to him. Sometimes you have people on the flight whose body language is, if you talk to me, I'd pull out the gun and shoot you right now. So you don't talk to them. I write my columns, I read, I do whatever I have to. So he turned out, so let me start, he was Italian. Used to be CEO of Bugatti. Then he board of another large Italian. He became my friend, so I invited him for a meal at the Imperial. Then he ended up, so he asked me, so he told me that there's another movie which is my favorite movie. It's a strange movie. Don't judge me on it. But it is. I've given CDs out 10 years back. It's called Being John Malkovich. Yes. Have you watched it? It's like I predict movies. I like watching a movie which has a very difficult end, and you can't predict, but I do. But that movie was just beyond anything I've seen. So he said, by the way, my daughter works with John Malkovich. And then I made him my best friend. Said, I want to meet John Malkovich. So, I have a love for movies. Someday I'll do something in the movie space, but for now, questions.
I have a question. Yeah.
Devika is another lovely colleague of mine. She did a conversation with Mr. Banerjee, the actor. Yeah, she didn't let me do it, huh? She did it.
A very good evening to you, Mr. Khan. I think it's an honor to ask you a question here, and I stood up from my seat because of the respect I have for you, for the content you bring on the screen.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yesterday on the conversation with Abhishek, we were talking about the other side of the industry, which is the actor's life. You being a director, a storyline is utmost important, of course, being a screenwriter and a cinematographer. But what are those 3 important elements you would like to focus in the movie which you're making? For example, I am not a very big movie watcher kind of a person, but when I go to a hall to watch a movie, I would like to come back with a relaxed mind. So that's kind of a well-being, mental health perspective for me. So what is that for you? I mean, would you like to highlight 3 points, main important 3 points in your movie, which you would like to cater to, which can help people relax down watching a movie, cherish it, entertainment factor? Maybe like scenic beauty locations, maybe the storyline of family, relations, love, or maybe a storyline which is a bonding? What would be those three things?
People watch movies for de-stressing, but that's
So I approach it slightly differently. I know that, as you said, you want to be relaxed. When I look back, because see, ultimately, as filmmakers, we are also the audience, right? We also, I think every filmmaker ultimately makes a film that he or she likes to watch, because that's the only way we can watch films, make films. So for me, it's not about relaxation. For me, growing up and watching films, my favorite films are those that made me think about them for days after I saw them, right? They could also be the ones that made me very uncomfortable, and therefore I thought about them for days. So it's not always for me about, oh, I came back with a very happy feeling, which is, for example, Life is Beautiful is a beautiful film, but it didn't make me smile. It made me cry for days, because it showed it through humor, and I just feel that humor is by far the most profound way of actually expressing emotions. But what it said, it was disturbing. So that's what I try and sort of create sometimes in my films, and sometimes I get it, sometimes I don't. But if I can make a film that you will wake up the next day and think about. I'm not one of those who says, oh, come to the theaters, haso, maze karo, or chale jao, and then forget about it. Then I feel my film's not really affected you the way I wanted it to. So I would like to say that my most successful films are those that you will think about for days after having seen it.
Can I reply? No, I mean, my view, but I think I know a bit about movies. Not many people know that side. But, movies are like a roller coaster ride. They take you through an emotion of sadness to feel what's happening, and then make you happy. Like Life is Beautiful is a great example. And, so movies have to be like a roller coaster ride and messaging. He writes, see, all his movies have a messaging. All his movies. They're a message, about...
I'd like to actually just narrate one simple line from who I feel is one of the greatest writers our industry has had, Salim Khan, of the Salim Javed duo. And actually I haven't spoken about this ever before, but there was supposed to be once, actually that song was released, but it wasn't part of Bajrangi Bhaijaan. It was a sort of a nice, like an item song where everybody is singing, dancing, which at some point Salman said we should put it at the end of the film. And I said, no, there's a certain emotion you get up with in that film. This film will completely spoil it. So he said, no, that's the reason why I want to put it, because I feel it's so emotional, everybody's crying by the end of it, that let them finish that, let them have that catharsis, and let's sort of enjoy the song and walk out. So I was dead against it. So he said, okay, why don't we try it out on some of the test audiences? So we did that. In one of the prints, I put this happy singing, dancing thing at the end of, for those who have seen Bajrangi, you remember the end, right? That emotional end where the girl is picked up by Salman and thrown in the middle of the border. And we put this, and that's the screening, thankfully for me, where Salim Saab came. And he saw the film, and he was the last to get up. And he came, I was waiting for him, and he came out and he said, "Bete bahut achhi film banai hai, I think it's Salman's best," and whatever. And he said, "Ek baat bolun aapko bura na lage to." I said, "Ji bataiye sir." He said, "Ek bahut achhi film और एक all time classic में एक फर्क है." I said, "क्या sir?" He said, "वो गाना." तो I said, मेरे को समझ में नहीं आया. So he said, so I said, "Last वाला गाना." He said, "हाँ वो क्या ज़रूरत है?" तो I said, "सर एक्चुअली बिल्कुल ज़रूरत नहीं है, हमें तो नहीं डालना है." So he said, "आपको नहीं डालना है?" तो I said, "नहीं." तो he said, "तो आप तो डायरेक्ट हो." I said, "नहीं, हम ऐसी टेस्ट स्क्रीनिंग कर रहे थे." So by which time Salman realizes, so he came in and he said, "नहीं डैड, हमने सोचा ना मुंह का मज़ा." So this line I'll never forget. He turned out, he said, "क्या रबड़ी बेच रहे हो जब मुंह का मज़ा चाहिए?" ऐसी फिल्म है कि 4 दिन का आदमी सोचता रहे और रोता रहे.
रबड़ी खाई नहीं.
हाँ, so that I think is very important.
मेरे को तो वैसे भी नहीं खानी चाहिए. रबड़ी की याद दिला दी इधर आपने. But we'll take more. Shobha, you want to ask?
Yeah, I want to ask you one question, Kabir. Your movies are based on mostly social causes, and they have the message that moves people. You inspire people through your cinema. I want to ask you that what really inspires you, and since we are in a business conference, how does one translate their inspiration into, let's say, a commercial success also? Because those two could be two completely different worlds to navigate into.
one can't aim for commercial success, I believe. Honestly, I never, when I was making Bajrangi, I didn't know it's going to become Salman's biggest grosser and do 1,000 crores. I think one can only, and for me, the way I approach it is the story that captures my imagination. If I'm able to do it, and that for me is the true definition of success. As long as I can continue making stories that excite me, I'm successful. The day I'm going to be told, no, not this, but this, and make it, that's, I know when my sort of downward journey has begun. So for me, again, it's not about the issue. I don't think one can go out and make a story about an issue. Ultimately, it has to be an engaging human story, because that's what your audience are going to latch onto, you know, your characters and the journey of the character. But yes, there must be the politics in the layers beneath. And I feel that it's not necessary for every part of the audience to get those layers. I think you can watch it at face value and should be able, but if you are able to get the layers of politics beneath, I think there'll be a more profound viewing for you. So yes, politics are very important. I feel every filmmaker has to have his or her politics. I've often heard this where people say, you know, no, we are apolitical. I don't believe anybody can be apolitical. You know, this table can be apolitical. We can't. And your politics must come across in what you're saying. You have a platform, you have a medium. If you're not able to speak about your ideology through the story that you're making, then I think it's a waste of a platform.
Absolutely.
So well said.
Mr. Amit Sharma is there, Dr. Pradyumna Vyas is there, Mr. Siddharth Das is there. You want to ask him a question? We have him. Yes, go ahead. She's a young entrepreneur. She's originally from Bihar, but in Bombay last 18 years she builds garments. She's a designer, fashion designer, and she's now doing for airlines and so on and so forth. I don't know her well.
So I'll go straight to the question. I wanted to know, do you have any, message for upcoming directors? What, something that they should keep in mind, because nowadays a lot of different contents are coming and so many. So what is something that they should think about before getting into it?
So in a certain sense, an extension of what I was talking about earlier, you have to break through the clutter, right? There are thousands of people wanting to make films, thousands of people wanting to make web shows. So what's different about you? That uniqueness and that USP about you has to come out, and that's the only way you'll be able to break through the clutter. If you try and just replicate something that's successful, and then I need, like if it's a friend of yours and you see his or her film, you should be able to say this can only be said by so and so. That's the only way, yeah. That signature of the artist has to be there. And that's the only way even us as, say, producers or studios, that's what we're looking for, right? We're looking for the new voice. We're not looking for a replica of a voice that already exists. There's no point, because the original is still there. They'll still be making it. So we're always looking for that new voice. And if you see that, rest assured, you'll definitely get a break.
He's on the World Design Council, he's a board member, chairman of our jury.
Hello, sir.
Among the most respected voices in design.
Actually, Dr. Batra talked about empathy, and you mentioned about the research going deep dive in subject area. And I have been watching these documentaries by Mr. Saeed Naqvi, and he's also gone too much into very troubled areas and other areas. And you did talk about that the viewer the impact should remain 2 days, 3 days, 4 days. But as a director, when you are really deep diving in the research and the human tragedy which you are coming across, I'm sure it must be affecting you very strongly. And how do you really come out with that which we may be seeing it through the screen, but you have witnessed it through research and through all real life tragedies. And I'm sure this must be kind of, as a human being, one is doing empathy, will shake them up. So how do you process that kind of thing?
It's always a very difficult process, because in fact in my earlier days as a documentary filmmaker, there was one film that I couldn't complete because of what you just mentioned. It was the first time I was going to Afghanistan, and I'd been commissioned by the Red Cross to do a film on the effects of war on children in Afghanistan. And I was there for close to a month, and what we saw, I couldn't complete that film. It was just too much. And then I think gradually, as one has more experiences, we begin to be able to, so in a certain sense, not separate ourselves or distance ourselves from what we are seeing, but be able to process it in a different manner so that we are able to tell that story, because that story is also very important. So, shutting down that documentary is not the best option. Ideally, I should have been able to make it and bring that pain to the audiences. But I think I myself went through, in a certain sense, a sort of trauma, having witnessed all that. And I was, at that time, really young. I was, I think, 24, 25. I was not able to handle it. So it is, in a certain sense, you take that 1 degree of separation, you start, looking at it as a story and saying, okay, how best can I convey what I'm feeling to the audiences? Because if it's hit me emotionally, if it's made me feel in a certain way, I need to be able to capture that emotion and translate it and send it out to the audiences. And I think that only comes with experience and, as I said, more research, more being able to speak to people, more being able to understand people's point of views, and then being able to sort of put it down in a script and put it forward. But it's a completely an ongoing journey. It's never, you can never at any point in your career say, I know how to do it. You never really know how to do it. You'll always only try your best to be able to take that and then put it forward.
Thank you for your question, Dr. Vyas. Any other questions? Anybody has a question? If not, now let me ask you 3 quick questions and we'll end it. One is, आपके नाम में कबीर है और आपके काम में भी कबीर है, तो एक कबीर का दोहा तो सुना दीजिए.
I'm sorry, but growing up, I only was constantly had a barrage of the non-vegetarian Kabir ka doha, so my muscle memory might slip up.
If the house gives permission, I have no problem. I'm above 18, I must tell you. I look like a young guy, but I'm above 18. Okay, any other? Okay, now let me ask you, I'll not put you in it. You're unique. Every person is unique. I am very, very unique. And people who work with me know that, or my friend. I'm super unique in every way. So I'm not stereotyping you. But are you the Steven Spielberg of India? Are you the Christopher Nolan of India? Are you the you're not the Martin Scorsese of India. Are you the, are you the James Cameron who takes 10 years to make a movie? What are you? Which is a Hollywood director you look up to?
I'm just working towards a position, maybe some years down on a similar platform in some other country. Somebody can be asked, are you the Kabir Khan of this country?
Wow, I love that. Yeah, that's right. By the way, I don't miss a Steven Spielberg movie I've watched.
But all the names you mentioned are people I admire.
Miss a Martin Scorsese movie.
Absolutely.
Oliver Stone, though sometimes I find them very over the top in terms of blood, gore, violence.
I love
but they keep you gripped. You can't just get up. And I have to tell you a small story. I have 2 children. One day I told my wife, I was at a party I was introduced. I have 4 children. So my wife said, I only know 2. So I said, exchange for media. That's my first company. And business world. So I have 2 more children. But my daughter is about to be 19. I think she was 5, 6. And we took her for a movie. And we took her for Race. And
1 or 2?
1. She was very small. 2, I'm not sure. And my wife does this. When scenes come, my wife does this on her. She was 5, 6. You can work backward. And she came out and she said, I liked Race 1. So I said, clearly she can't be our daughter. I said, I want to disown her if she likes Race 1. Right? So I have such a strong view on movies. So I want to ask you, which are your top 3 movies which are Indian and top 3 movies which are Hollywood?
You mean of all time?
Of whichever you like. Which you like. I'm talking Kabir Khan.
Oh my God, that's an impossible question.
6 movies. Celebrities होने का ये होता है उनसे पूछो ना, who's your favorite? I have too many. I can't take anyone. But you seem like a very authentic.
I'll be able to probably name some films that, again, it's like the perfect beach. It's not about whether that film was a great film or not, but it's the impact that film had on you when you saw it. So I have to mention, for sure, Bobby.
Of course.
I'll tell you why. It's the first film I saw in the theaters.
Beautiful.
And I have faint memories of that because my mother was a big film buff, so she would take us to everything from...
You should be 10 then, 9 or 10.
I must have... Yeah, I don't even
You're
remember.
68 born, sorry, I didn't want to give you...
I don't remember really how old I was, but I remember it's one of the
76, you were 8 born.
Was it 76, Bobby?
So Bobby was 76 or 77, you can Google. 73.
Yeah, because
then you'll be
I
5
have
years
very
old.
faint memories. I was very young.
5 years.
Yeah, and Sholay. Sholay is of course a cliched answer because it's on everybody's list. Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gum. Not Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gum. Not at all. Sorry, wrong. What am I saying? I've forgotten the name also. No. Jaane bhi do yaron. Can you imagine what a Freudian slip that is? Jaane bhi do yaron. Yeah, Jaane bhi do yaron. These are films I remember which had a huge impact of me. Ankur, my mother was directed by Shyam Benegal in Nizam's College in Hyderabad. So we went to see Shyam Babu's. That was his first film. So these are films which had huge impact on me. Art Satya, of course. Then even Mr. Bachchan's films. She always took us first day to watch Mr. Bachchan's films. So I remember sort of also having that.
And Hollywood.
And I used to when I came a certain age, I used to only like action films. So every time my cousin or somebody said we should go for a film, I said, action hai, ladai hai. I don't think we even called it action. I would say, ladai hai. And he would say, haan hai. So we would go and watch action films. Till I remember one day, I was in Hyderabad, and he said, let's go to watch this film. And I said, ladai hai? He said, nahi, isme ladai nahi hai. I said, nahi, mujhe nahi jana. I don't want to see it. So he said, nahi, come, trust me, you will like this film. And I went to see this film. It's the first film which had no action, and I just loved it. It was Chashme Baddoor.
What picture hai? Wow.
So
मैं एक दो पिक्चरें फिर देखने वाला हूँ, बहुत साल से देखी थी। तो छुट्टी लूँगा 7 महीने, तो वैसे भी मैंने कोई छुट्टी नहीं ली है।
And one English film I like to mention is The Killing Fields. The Killing Fields is, if you haven't seen it, you have to watch it. It's one of the most brilliant films. It's a true story it's a story of 2 journalists. So it'd be more up your street, about a Cambodian journalist and an American journalist in Vietnam and Cambodia. And it was made into a film. It's the first film that made me sort of see how a human story and the layers of politics beneath that can make for such profound storytelling. So yeah, these are some of the, in the early days, the films that I saw that make a huge impact. After that, it's all a blur, and after that, it's very difficult to say which are your favorite films.
Yeah, I must tell you, I won't tell you the name of the guy, but about 10, 12 years back, I went to Singapore with the CEO of a very large media company. He's a very close friend of mine, as most media company CEOs and promoters are. We saw this movie in Singapore. It has Afghanistan's first scene is about Afghanistan. And me and my friend said, Paise Vasool. We had different criteria for Paise Vasool. And that scene was not in the Indian. Eventually the movie came, so we had, but life has changed. It's a movie it's about how the American Parliament decided to send. You know which movie I'm talking. Tom Hanks is in the movie.
Oh, Charlie Wilson's War. Yeah, but the book is way better than the film.
Always. I mean, that's debatable which book is better. But mostly the books are better, I would say. But the movie was enjoyable.
It was very enjoyable.
You know which scene
But the book is fascinating.
Yeah. So, what about other Hollywood movies?
As I said, then they become a blur.
Have you watched this movie called Forever Young? Mel Gibson. Not a commercial success.
I don't think I've seen it.
You should watch it.
Yeah.
It has everything a movie should have. Emotion. It's not a successful movie, but I loved it. I watched it long time back. My last question, because we have awards, we have Mr. Amit Wadhwani. Are you in the room, Amit? From Buffering. If he's not, we will need to get him in the room. Does Mr. Khan have a bucket list of things he wants to do in the next 10 years, 5 years?
हजारों ख्वाहिशें ऐसी. If you don't have a bucket list.
हजार तो थोड़ा awards भी करने, but 2-4 बता दो.
So one is, so I don't know whether this club exists, but I remember Saeed Bhai telling me years ago when we started on the journey about a club. अब मुझे पता नहीं Saeed Bhai ने कहानी बनाई थी या सही में है, but वो मेरे जहन में बैठ गया है. About a club called Club 100 in London, which only allows members who have travelled to 100 countries. Wow. So that's on
Club 100. How many have you travelled till now?
I'm close to 90. So I'm not too far away.
Sri Lanka चले जाओ, Pakistan, Nepal, 4 तो यही होगी.
Yeah, so that's
I like that. By the way, I know him because my first business, Exchange for Media, it's on number 1 media website. Yes. So of course, Mr. Naqvi is preeminent. His daughter, is a journalist.
Farah, yeah.
South Delhi mein
And
rehte.
Sabha. Sabha and-
Sabha. I know Sabha.
Yeah.
And again, I last met him I went to a hospital. He was not well. So it was near his home. I last met him there, but he's okay now.
Yeah.
I don't know him that well, but yes. और एक तो ये है Club 100.
क्लब 100 बहुत टाइम तक ये था मेरे दिमाग में कि I'll climb Everest, लेकिन अब वो मैंने उम्र के
Mount
साथ छोड़
Everest.
जी I was an avid climber. I've
Yeah,
climbed
yeah.
a lot of
You and
peaks
Sunil were discussing.
in India, but I never managed because Everest
मैंने
is,
Mount Everest तो नहीं किया, but I'm married to the same woman for 22 years. So I don't know who should get the award, but
so
it's
I've
quite
been to
close.
the Everest base camp and I've looked at the peak and said one day, but I think that I'll have to drop off.
Beautiful. यार आपकी बड़ी ख्वाहिश है
जी
और इंटरेस्टिंग ख्वाहिश है
जी
It's not about money, it's not about
No,
having
yeah,
60
yeah.
million followers.
No,
It's about
not
real
at all.
experience.
It's about life
और
experience.
एक
It's all
last
about
third.
last third. It's again related to travel. It's a place that I've always wanted to go to, but I've not managed to. मैंने एक यशराज में joke होता था that Kabir writes into his script the countries that he wants to travel to. So that's how Cuba happened, because I was obsessed. My father was one of the founding professors of JNU, so obviously left-leaning. So Fidel and Che were our heroes. So I said Cuba तो जाना ही है.
आपको पता है मेरे एक दोस्त अर्नब गोस्वामी ने अपने बेटे का नाम शे है उसके बेटे का.
जी 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 जी.
अर्नब भी रेवोल्यूशनरी है वैसे.
हाँ जरूर जरूर वो तो सबसे बड़े revolutionary.
You can't disagree with that.
No, but for me it's been the Patagonia, mountains of Patagonia.
Oh, Patagonia is
Yeah,
beautiful.
I really want to go there. That's been on my. So all my, as you can make out, all my entire bucket list is all about
You
travel.
should do a travel show.
I would
You
love
should.
to. I would love to.
And I'm saying it, you could be the James Barton of India. You could be good looking, your screen presence, you research well, this is your passion. Trust me, you should do a very high
Maybe
end.
after the next film, why not? Yeah.
Yeah, and what's your next movie?
My next movie is also, of late I've been attracted to a lot of true stories. So Post 83, which is a story of heroes we all know. I've picked up a story of a completely forgotten hero. So the thrill will be to introduce this hero to our audiences. And trust me, when you see the story, you'll be shocked that us as Indians don't know this person.
Lala Hardayal?
No, I'm not going to take names because everybody will start Googling, but it's an unbelievable story. When I first heard the story,
But
I
let
thought
me
it's...
do a test. Do you know who's Lala Hardayal? You know who's Lala Hardayal? How many of you know who's Lala Hardayal? Trust me, how many of you know who's Lala Hardayal? Sir, I would expect you to know. At least thank you for being honest. How many of you don't know? Raise your hand. So none of you knows. So Lala Hardayal was this Indian revolutionary statesman. मेरे दादा का नाम है श्री हरदयाल बत्रा और मेरे नाना का नाम है श्री हरदयाल सरदाना. So they named, he was so big that people would name their children after him. He is one of the truly top 5, like Subhash Chandra Bose, Lala Hardayal. Google him. My friend Bhuvan Lal, you know Bhuvan? Bhuvan's written a book, maybe that's how
I know.
That's how you know him. But I know him as a child, my parents telling me why my grandparents are called, right? He's one of the genuinely top 3-4 people in India, like Gandhi, Subhash Chandra Bose, Swami Vivekananda, Lala Hardayal. But let's figure out who you're making your movie on. Look forward to, when are you announcing it?
Soon, very soon. Yeah.
Look forward to your movie. Please give Mr. Kabir Khan. I don't
Thank
feel
you.
like letting you go, but I think everything has its time, like a great movie you make. But I thoroughly enjoyed talking to you. I do this for a living, but today it was special because we discussed movies. By the way, I've invested in a company which is launching the equivalent of a Hollywood Reporter in India. Yeah, it's called IWM Buzz. They're number 4 on ComScore, 22 million. I'll introduce you to the founder. Please give Mr. Kabir Khan a big round of applause for being such an open, honest, authentic, and interesting person. Bigger round of applause.